So, good morning, hello, and welcome to the 7th Annual Wild Wisconsin Winter Web Conference. I am Jean Anderson with the South Central Library System, and I am moderating the Small and Mighty track today. And assisting me today is Leah Langby with the IFLIS Library System in Eau Claire, and we are so glad that you are here with us. Our presenter for this morning's session is Jeremy Bolam with the Lincoln Parish Library in Ruston, Louisiana, and he will be discussing how to reconnect with your inner WHY-brarian. Jamie, whenever you are ready, please begin.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here this morning, and thanks everybody for joining us in surviving the snow and making it to day 2 of the Wild Wisconsin Web Conference. I've attended several sessions yesterday, and this is a great experience. Hopefully everybody has heard of Simon Sinek, even if you don't know his major principles. So I'm going to talk about how I connected his principles to librarianship. And so the way that the presentation is set up is that I explain his concept and then connect it to libraries. So some of the slides come directly from his website because he believes in sharing his content with the world, which is great. So I give a big shout out to Simon because he's a great sharer of information. So that's why I have on there with information, insight, and inspiration from Simon Sinek. I first saw Simon speak when I was at PLA in Indianapolis, and they had the big ideas presentations in the morning. It was one of those 8 o'clock sessions that you have to go to. And I was so glad that I got up for every single one of them, but his was quite inspiring. It was the first time that I ran into his golden circle principle, and I'll explain that in depth in a little bit. And I've also had the lovely experience of attending one of the Why Discovery sessions, which is part of that whole experience as well. So I'm kind of an advocate, I guess, for his cause, but there's a good reason for it, and I hope by the end of the session you'll agree with me. So we've all been this guy, at least once upon a time in our life. You're at the moment where a feather's weight of stress will send you over the edge, or perhaps you suddenly realize that you are caught in a state of working and moving at constant max velocity. And often, too often, you slide even further to where you get to what we like to call burnout, which can, if left unattended, become job dissatisfaction. So burnout is the exhaustion of physical or emotional strength or motivation, usually as a result of prolonged stress and frustration. Now, that can happen from all kinds of areas of our life, but for today, we're going to be mainly focusing on that at work. And one of the statistics that I picked up at the Why Discovery workshop was that they say of 3 billion employed people worldwide, only 13% of them are actually happy and engaged at work, like completely happy and engaged all the time. And that's a lot of people. Here is an actual statistical layout of a survey that was done by Library Journal of satisfied librarians across all spectrum. And the numbers I want you to focus on are the middle numbers, the somewhat satisfied, because it's about almost a quarter of people are only somewhat satisfied. And why do you want to worry about the people that are somewhat satisfied? Because they're easier to slide back to the not too satisfied or not satisfied at all. And those kind of employees and ourselves as leaders would have a problem. We can't lead or be effective at our job if we keep heading in that direction. So if you add the somewhat satisfied and not too satisfied or not satisfied at all together in public libraries, you actually outrank or tie the very satisfied people. So it kind of creates it can create a kind of a hostile environment as well at work. So how does this even happen in the first place? And unfortunately, even though a lot of people like to think that they're a little different at work and can keep their feelings out of the picture, that just doesn't happen. We're human beings and we're emotional creatures. We're unfortunately from Earth and not from Vulcan. So therefore, our feelings play into a lot of everything that we do. So your feelings also affect your perception on life and therefore your actions as well. So there's 2 directions that you can go when you take action. And one of them is engagement, which is the one you are trying to aim for every day, which leads to job satisfaction. But the other road goes to disconnection, where you disconnect from things that are going on, and then that could lead to job dissatisfaction and burnout. And even though we're librarians, we're not superhuman. We're very empathetic, but that can't protect us from all things at all times. The goal is to keep on the side of engagement and to avoid the road to distraction. And disconnection and distraction lead to one place. It's a very scary one, inhabited by a stressed out and apathetic person whose burnout is about to reach critical. So critical, in fact, that you may find yourself with little or nothing else to give your patrons, your staff, your organization, and in the worst case scenario, your friends, family, and yourself. Everything is a trickle-down effect. It's hard to keep work and life separate. I know in a perfect work culture, these things should happen, but they don't always do so. Fear not, there is a way to bolster yourself from going down this path, or hopefully at least not so often. And you will find yourself less like a burned out match and more like an impressive and vibrant person overflowing with constantly flowering passion that others can only be drawn to. And how do you do this? This is where Simon Sinek's principle, the golden circle, comes into play. And it's a beautiful concept that explains why we do what we do. And I'm just going to go, these are the slides that come directly from his website, and I'm going to go through the way that Simon would explain it to you, but probably not as eloquently whatsoever. So the golden circle is made up of three words: the what, the how, and the why. And the overreaching principle is, why is it that some leaders and organizations are able to inspire greater loyalty and engagement among their customers and employees? How is it that they're able to achieve and sustain inordinate amounts of success from year to year? Whether or not you realize that all great and inspiring leaders and organizations think, act, and communicate in the same way, and it is the complete opposite of how everyone else does it, and how most people function on a daily basis. For every single organization on the planet, even our own careers, we function on these three levels: what we do, why we do it, how we do it, and why we do it. The first stage is the what. Every organization and individual knows what they do. For an organization, these are the products they sell or the services they offer. For libraries, it would be the services we offer, the things that we circulate, the story times we give. For an individual, this would be their job titles or their roles within the organization. Some organizations and individuals know how they do what they do. This is a little higher level of strength. Hows are the organization or individual strengths and values or guiding principles. These are the things that they feel. These are the things that set them apart from the competition, the things that they think make them special or different from everyone else. You can see how the how resonates really beautifully with how libraries function, because there are a lot of things that set us apart from other organizations. Very few people and very few organizations can clearly articulate why they do what they do. Why is a purpose, a cause, or a belief, and it provides a clear answer to the questions: why do you get out of bed in the morning? Why does your organization exist? And why should that matter to anyone else? Making money is not a why. Revenues, profits, and salaries and other monetary measurements are simply results of what we do. The why is about our contribution and impact to serve others, and the why should inspire us. And I want to take this opportunity to say, if anybody's got questions, feel free to put them in the question box. I do not mind being interrupted, because I want to make sure that everybody understands the concept if it's new to you. So let's think about the goals. Is there a question? Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Okay.
There isn't yet, but I did want to remind everyone, I forgot to mention that you have a handout, and it's in the handout section of the control panel, so just so that they know it's there, and so when you refer to that later.
Okay. So to better explain the golden circle, I'm going to give you two examples of how a library would describe itself, or an individual at a library would describe what they do to someone who doesn't know what they do. So people naturally communicate from the outside in, from what, how, and then the why. They typically go from the easiest to understand to what is hardest to understand and explain. They tell people what they do, they tell people how they make a difference and how they're better, and then they expect a behavior, which could be either a purchase or perhaps a vote to keep a tax for the library to be able to function. So here is how I envision how a library would communicate, starting with what. Here is our library. We have the industry's most intelligent librarians who graduated from the nation's top schools. Have you seen our statistics? And check out our beautiful library and especially lovely children's room. Oh, and look at all these books and materials we have for you to take home for free. So come be a patron at our library. The problem is that what and how do not inspire action. They just give facts and figures, so they speak rationally to people, and they can be convincing. People do not make decisions based only on facts and figures. I'll say that again. People do not always make decisions purely based on facts and figures. I mean, you may think that you do, but I promise that you don't. Starting with what commodities do. I mean, you're selling individual things. You're selling services, you're selling books, you're convincing people to come to story time, you're convincing people to try your new online service. Starting with why is what leaders and leading organizations do, and this inspires people. So let's do the same scenario starting with why from the center. When you communicate from the inside, the purpose or the cause comes first. It literally taps the part of the brain that influences behavior. So here's an example from the same library. We believe in surfacing the needs of everyone so that together our diverse community can grow toward a successful and prosperous future. We do so with a variety of services, multimedia collections, multi-use facilities, and a team of professionally trained staff ready to meet the needs of any community member who walks through our doors. We are a world-class library. Come see for yourself. If the people at this library actually believe in their why and think, act, and communicate starting with their why, they will attract people who believe the same and want to be a part of their cause. Not just visit the library, but then become advocates for what you're doing. And as mentioned earlier, you don't always make decisions based on rational evidence. Feelings actually do come into play. There's no way around it. It's wired into us as human beings. So remember that flow chart that I showed at the beginning. Your feelings shape your perceptions, which form into actions that lead into different directions. So within the realm of feelings, why questions can actually make you uncomfortable. They're hard to answer. And you can get emotional when you talk about things. When someone asks you, well, why did you do that? You will feel a clinch where it's hard to explain what you mean. Feelings can motivate you to do something and make you passionate. The power of an emotional connection really is what keeps great companies and vibrant organizations vital. Simon uses in his book, Start With Why, the example of Apple computers, or Apple Incorporated now, and how the people who buy Apple and are always the first to get the new Apple device are not just loyal because they like the device and know what it can do and believe in this and ease of use. They actually believe in what the company stands for, that it's different, and that it's always innovative, etc. So Apple, big Apple supporters will like run over other people to try and get to the store first because they have that deep connection with the product and the company. So loyalty leads to trust. Same way with if Apple had battery gate, supporters, that didn't stop a supporter from buying another Apple product because we trust that the company is going to do right by us and keep going. I guess I just said we, so that means I'm in that group. If you think you can keep your emotions out of the process in life, again, I think you're crazy, but maybe you've reached a state of nirvana, and please, I'd be happy to know how you got there. So as I said before, it's rooted in our makeup as a human being. We have no choice because feelings are deep-rooted in our chemistry. And so here's a biological explanation of the whole thing. If you take a cross-section of the human brain and compare it to the golden circle, then you see that the layout perfectly correlates to this. So the outer part, what relates to the neocortex, which is our rational and analytical part of our brain. It's also the part that's responsible for language. So it's easy to relate rational and analytical thought because it's connected directly to language. The two inner circles, the how and the why, are connected to the limbic part of the brain. And the limbic brain is responsible for feelings like loyalty and trust. It's also responsible for actual human behavior and decision making. Does that seem like it's making sense from before? Feelings come into play with your decision making. But here's the kicker. It has no capacity for language. You're depending on a different part of the brain to be able to express. So there's a disconnect there. Communication from the outside in, and people can understand vast amounts of complicated information like features, benefits, facts, and figures, but it simply does not drive human behavior. But communication from the inside out speaks directly to the part of the brain that controls emotions, behavior, and decision making. But if asked the reason why a person chooses what they choose, one service over another, the decision maker often cites features, benefits, facts, or figures because that's the part of the brain that can communicate more easily. The neocortex, the thinking part of the brain, is always trying to understand and make sense of the world. This is the reason why we think we are rational beings when we are really not. We're still emotional beings. If we were, we would never buy a product or service simply based on how it makes us feel. I think we can all agree that we've done something because we had a gut feeling about it, or it just felt right. So we would never be loyal. We would never choose the best deal. We would never care about trust or relationships, and we would only evaluate by the numbers. We know that we don't do that, and we choose one product, service, or company over another because of the way it makes us feel. The limbic system controls our emotions, feelings, and decision-making, but remember, it has no capacity for language. We make decisions using our limbic system and then rationalize that decision with the part of the brain that can communicate with words, the neocortex. There is a difference between repeat business and loyalty, which I've touched on before. Repeat business means that someone is willing to continue to do business with you because of some reason. That would be a lower price at the library system because you have one online service over another. As soon as that convenience is no longer available, the customer complains and probably leaves to go to another location. Loyalty is something completely different. You may choose to suffer a little bit or some kind of inconvenience that you have to deal with to continue doing business with the person that you like. You'll often pay more, travel a little further, proudly defend and champion your brand, even if your product or service is a little more expensive, a little further away, and somehow less convenient. I can use an example of we're a parish system here at Lincoln Parish Library, so we're the same as counties everywhere else in America. Louisiana is a little bit special. And we're one library for our parish, so we're a unique system too. We serve all 40,000 people in one location. But there are several parishes within easy driving distance from us that have their own library systems. But we have cooperative sharing with those systems, but we have a lot of people that only visit us and not their local library because they like what we have a little better. So that's a good example of how, a little inconvenience doesn't matter if you're doing what they want. So another concept is how to be authentic and how that draws people into you, and with the golden circle. So authenticity, this is the definition of authenticity. It's not false or imitation. It's true to one's own personality, spirit, or character, and is sincere and authentic with no pretensions. Another way to consider is working in harmony through our authenticity. Authenticity is basically the real deal, and it usually holds weight. And it's tied to the concept of why, because you keep all three, why, how, and what, in balance to create authenticity. You have a clarity of your why, you have a discipline of how, and you have a consistency of what. No one section of the golden circle is more important than the other, and the most important thing is the balance across all three. If you don't know why you do what you do, how can you expect someone else to know? For others to know your why, you must first have a clarity of it for yourself. The actions that you and your people take to bring your cause to life must be aligned with your values, guiding principles, strengths, and beliefs. So that's the discipline of your how. And everything you say and everything you do must be consistent with what you believe. After all, we live in a tangible world. The only way people will know what you believe is if you say and do the things you actually believe. And that's your consistency of what. Simon's most quotable thing is, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. He says it a lot of the time. And I'll add on to that, and what you do simply serves as the tangible proof of what you believe. So people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And what you do simply serves as the tangible proof of what you believe. Now, just to hammer home this concept and multiple ways to think about it, you can also take the golden circle and turn it into a cone. And you can think of it as an organizational chart, because most people are used to thinking as leadership comes from the top and it trickles down. So it's a similar kind of concept. And it also explains how great organizations are structured. So the cone represents the company or an organization. And the top of the system, representing the why, is the leader, who articulates the why and points to the vision for a better future. So you can think of Steve Jobs as the purveyor of the why for Apple Corporation for a long, long time. The next level down, the how level, includes the people who are inspired by the leader's cause. They give their blood, their sweat, and their tears, and their many, many hours to build and bring the vision to life. So those are all of the employees and how they work for the company to do what they have to do. The what at the bottom of the cone are the things the organization says and does that bring life into the why. They make the vision, by all the work that they do in the how, tangible. An organization communicates its why through everything it says and does, the marketing, the products, the services, everything. One more way, and this is actually my favorite, is that you can turn that cone on its side, and now you've got a megaphone. So remember the library who said, "We believe in servicing the needs of everyone so that together our diverse community can grow toward a successful and prosperous future. We do so with a variety of services, multimedia collections, multi-use facilities, and a team of professionally trained staff ready to meet the needs of any community member who walks through the doors. We are a world-class library, so come see for yourself." So you can see that vision coming through the megaphone. So why from the top? Again, don't think of it as a top-down management structure, but more of a top-down trickle effect, where the vision and mission is robust energy that flows all the way down to the bottom. It creates a strong organizational structure, and it makes the company authentic. You've got clarity of why, discipline of how, and consistency of what. And it's a saturation of belief, which then becomes a culture. And if you can get a culture going in your organization, then you will definitely have a lot of happy employees and job satisfaction. So how does this affect an individual in a larger picture? Now, I know we all come from different size libraries, and this is in the small and mighty's track. And then for some people, you may be one or two people that run a library. So the way you can think about it is that, especially if you're at a branch, you're a nest within a bigger organization. So in Find Your Why, Simon and his team came up with the concept of nested whys. So you have your own branch with its why, or your own department with its why, and it still fits within the organization's why. So you have the organization's why, then your team, department, branch why, and then you can also have your own personal why, because every single one of these units have a why, a how, and a what structure of how they're operating on a daily basis and making an impact on the world in however they need to do that. The organizational why will always trickle through all three. So starting from the top, the organization's why is why the organization exists, its purpose, cause, or belief. And you need to think about how does it help the customer? It connects to their lives. The why should connect to their lives, and how does it make it better? And then it should also impact the employees. The employees should believe in the why and have a direct connection to it. They are the people that make the why actionable, and they need to be able to see their contribution in an action that makes an impact. That is a statement that really drives home how your employees get on board with a overreaching vision and mission. If they don't see the contribution that they make and the impact that that contribution has, then that employee will get easily disconnected. So underneath the organizational why, then you have your departments, your teams, etc. And for a department, it's the same kind of structure. It's why does it exist? What is the purpose of it? What is its cause? What do the people believe, and how they set forth to do the job that they have to do? If there isn't a reason for a department to exist, then maybe it shouldn't exist. And I've seen some libraries regroup departments because the functions of the original functions of those departments change, so the why has to change as well. So why should anyone care what the department does? Because of customers and employees, just like with the organization. So who do they assist? How do they make a direct connection with the people that they're interacting with? And how is the team made better through these connections? It helps the employee, again, because they believe in the why. They see the nested connection, how their department's impact and function connects with the upper why. And then, of course, just like before with employees, they're able to see the department's contribution in action and how that makes an impact. And the last little nest that you would sit in, if you would think of it as an image, which I didn't include because that wasn't in the slides, and I would have had to taken a picture of the one in the book, which is not copyright compliant. You could think of your personal why as a little bird sitting in the nest of the department that's on the branch of the bigger tree of the organization. So we're now to the bird. So your personal why is why you go to work, you at your very best at work, and how you fit into the nest as your little bird. And then every day, of course, your why should still be able to bleed across borders. So, because we all know that work and personal life, even though we like to say we can keep them separate, usually they bleed together quite easily. So when you find your own why, usually it can translate from work and into the everyday. So it's your purpose, cause, or belief, you at your very best when you are around others, and how you have an impact and what your contribution is to the world at large, which is one of the things that's so great about Simon's concept, is that he believes that if everyone followed the golden circle principle, that it would definitely make the world a better place. And that's what people should be doing. So here's a look at this concept of nested whys as a library person. And this is the big picture. Starting at the top, you have the profession itself, libraries, and then of course our parent organization or association that you can either join or not join, but then, kind of says what libraries are about, which is the American Library Association. And then under that, American Library Association has different kinds of specialty organizations like the Public Library Association, and then the great organization, Association of Rural and Small Libraries, which is still independent, I believe. But those are larger organizations, but still under the umbrella of the larger one. And then after that, you've got your state associations, you've got regional groups that get together and do things. And then state associations often have interest groups, meetings, and sections and committees that also function under there. And then within that, you've got your governing body. Here in Louisiana, we call them police juries, which sounds really terrible because it looks like a police state, but that's our parish council. There may also be city councils. So your governing body should also have a why, and play into how your why fits. And then underneath, of course, is your library, your department, and then you. So nesting can go as high as you need to find the nest you feel most connected with. And what that means is, like, not everybody's tree is going to look the same. So if you're best connected to your state association because you believe in their mission, their vision, and how your contribution is able to impact their vision and mission and affect the people around you, then that is your overreaching why, your solid tree. For me, I always go back all the way up to the American Library Association when I'm at my lowest, because that biggest concept, especially like the code of ethics, is something that fills me with inspiration to remind me what we're supposed to be doing every day. So hopefully that makes sense of how your tree can change and grow, and or you can think of it also as what limb are you sitting on today and how your impact flows through that tree. You can also think of, if we want to get real touchy-feely, like a breeze going through the branches. So do we remember this guy? He has fallen, basically he's fallen out of his nest. He was the little bird that fell out of his nest. He has exhaustion of physical or emotional strength and motivation due to prolonged stress and frustration, and he's heading for burnout. And the reason for this is because his why or another why is out of focus. And this can happen at any level. Simon refers to it as a fuzzy why. And this happens because there's a loss of clarity of why. Remember, you cannot be authentic if you do not have clarity of why. It breaks the chain of authenticity, and it pushes people out of the nest. So they're not on board anymore because the overreaching why has been disrupted somehow. It could be because there's a change in leadership. It could be because there's a change in department head. It could be because there's a tax election coming up. There could be lots of reasons why the why could be in and out of focus. So the problem with this is that it leads to a lot of disconnection, disillusionment, dissatisfaction, disruption, dispute, discord, disliking, and disgust, which of course could lead to burnout and then job dissatisfaction. And the last thing you want to hear somebody is to be so frustrated as to say, I hate my job. So when you find yourself at this, or someone that you know is facing this crisis, what can you do? And I went through this process with my own department to try and find a why. And these are some of the questions that I asked them to try and reconnect them to what they do every day. So to reconnect basically on a professional level, you can ask some of these questions. What is your purpose for coming to work? What is your connection to the library? What do you like about your work? Where is the impact of what you do felt the most? How do you fit into the department? What connects you most with your work? What energizes you on and off the job? And I always include the on and off the job because, especially in libraries, there's a way to pull your own interests, which stem from your why, into the libraries. There's usually a way to find a connection for that, and that can be a powerful thing for employees or for yourself to give it that little extra sparkle that you are at your best. So some actions you can take to reconnect professionally. You're actually doing one right now. You're attending a webinar. That's a great way to reconnect professionally and hoping getting some good inspiration to remind you why you show up to work every day. Other things you can do are to attend a conference, volunteer for your organization, visit other libraries. To be able to see it from the outside in is always a powerful thing to do as well. Reconnect with a colleague that may be someone that you went to school with or someone that you used to work with that moved on to another situation, and just see how they're doing. Help a coworker on a project is another great way. Cross-train to see how another department's impact is on the organization and the patrons. At the basic level, just help a patron. When I'm more and more administrative all the time, but when I'm having a crisis of faith when it comes to what are we doing here today, all I need to do is go walk out on the floor and see the patrons doing what they're doing to remind me what I'm doing is for a greater cause. And a really powerful one is to create a community partnership somehow to the library. And the beautiful thing about creating community partnerships is it also can add another nest or another branch or nest to your tree. And we, like I said before, we are not just our work. So we have to also sometimes reconnect personally. So if you've identified your own why, there's a disconnect, perhaps it needs revising. Maybe you're too focused on the what's. It's very easy to be bogged down on doing the day-to-day. This whole talk and Simon's Golden Circle concept is to remind us to remember the bigger picture. So ways to reconnect personally is that you can go back to a hobby that you liked, visit a museum or something that inspires you. Again, visit another library, reconnect with friends or family, get a pet, start a sport of some kind. There's so many ways to reinvigorate yourself. Remember that you at your very best is why you exist. And it's when you're in your groove or that kind of thing. When I went to the Why Discovery workshop, it's to go through the process is a unique and kind of a traumatic experience. And I recommend if you read Simon's work to go through and read the book that explains how to find a why, because you find it from within yourself. You go back to the times in your life that meant the most to you, that had an impact, and you tell those stories to somebody. And at the Discovery Workshop, I was telling it to complete strangers, which was okay, but if you still kind of scary. And then they listen to these stories and they start finding themes in what makes you tick and what made your life what it is today. And it kind of awakened something in me that I didn't know was there, or it highlighted something, put a spotlight on something that I didn't realize that was there. And once I had my why and I told it to a couple of people who knew me best, especially at work, they were like, oh, well, yeah, that is you. And so I thought that was really interesting. So I hope everybody got something out of this and understands the concept and what it can do for you. It's like one of those things, and if you knew me personally, this is not something that I usually do is a touchy-feely kind of a presentation, and this is definitely in that realm. When I gave it at my state association, they said I was beet red the whole time I talked, and I said, well, it's because I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm communicating the why, and it's emotional, so it's hard to talk about. So with that being said, I'm open for questions. I do want to also point out the handout to everyone that please download, and I forgot to make a copy of myself to give you the list, but it includes all of Simon's works. And unfortunately, his latest book was supposed to be out in the fall, and he's postponed it. But start with why is inspirational. I also like his book, Leaders Eat Last. I think that one is very motivational as well. At the bottom of the page is a listing of the books that he recommends. Personally, a lot of these authors he's made connections with after reading their books. So he has some great inspirational people that he works with. I have a recommended reading list. My recommended reading list is, again, books that pulled me back to remind myself and reminded me how to reconnect with the passion and the why in a different way. And then, of course, it's also all the resources for what you saw in the presentation today. So, Jean, do we have any questions?
Hi, Jeremy. That was awesome. I was taking notes along the way. I also saw Simon at PLA, and he was amazing to see there. That was my first introduction to him. Linda asks, what is your personal why?
My personal why, and I just closed the book. Hang on. Because I do have it in here because somebody always asks. My why is to advocate so that we can all walk the proper path to our true selves. And I do that through delighting with connections, accessing every database, championing the underdog, accepting where we are, and keep moving forward.
Oh, that is awesome. Thank you for sharing.
No problem.
So we, yes, and Linda says wonderful. So thank you so much for sharing. So I was going to ask, how did do you do this? How do you maintain this within your department, within your library? Is this something that you do periodically? How do you maintain this within your system?
Well,
Yeah.
yes, the whole library hasn't done one. I keep pushing for us to do one, but we don't usually get very many staff training days because our board's not keen on us being close to the public. But I did, after I did the Why discovery, I felt that I had to take my staff, my department through the journey. So we started having staff meetings, and luckily they were amenable to it because we had them like at closing on Friday evening. So they took their Friday. I mean, they were still getting paid, but I mean, we took our Friday evenings for several months to go through the why process. And they told stories about, you know, what they do on the job and all that kind of stuff, and went through the whole process. And I think and I was impressed with what they came up with. And I'm trying to find where I have it in my thing so I could read you what their why is, but of course now I can't find it. But the way that we keep at it is I made magnets to put around, because one of the things that they say in the book is that your why should mean so much to you that it would be something that you would be proud to put on the wall or either tattoo on yourself. So you have it when you're ready to tattoo it. And it was funny because revisiting this presentation yesterday and writing down my why again, and there was still something that I didn't like about it, and I finally figured it out. So I have it. So this is the reason why I finally have the perfect why. So I'm so glad.
Oh, good. Good. I'm glad. And that's good that your staff, and so I know one of the things that I've talked about before in presentations that I do is about your core values and living them. And I think this is the same thing.
Yep.
When you find your purpose, you have to live it. It's just becomes part of who you are. So
yes, and it's a natural thing as a librarian because we do want to give a little bit more. So it's an easy connection to connect this with what we do every day.
Yes. Excuse me. So someone had asked in the chat about the handout. The handout should be in the there's a handout section on your control panel, and if you don't find it there, it will also be uploaded to the where the recording section will be on the Wild Wisconsin web conference site, along with the recording later today or tomorrow. So everything will be up and posted. So if you can't get it here, it'll be up there later. If anyone else has any questions for Jeremy, go ahead and submit them in the questions panel. We do have a few minutes left here today.
I'm usually way too fast, but you didn't tell me to slow down. So
no, I thought you were doing great. So
I did find my department's why. It's
please share. Yes.
To remove barriers and make connections that enrich, inspire, and educate. And the enrich, inspire, educate comes from the library's vision statement. In fact, it's on we have uniforms and a logo, and the enrich, inspire, educate is worn over, and I always tell everybody it's worn over your heart for a reason. So so they remove, and we're the research and reader, we call ourselves research and reader services department. So we help with just about anything. So, but they see themselves as removing barriers and making connections so that others can be enriched, inspired, and educated. So I thought that was neat. That wasn't what I was expecting. And so I love a surprise. So.
Oh, that's great. And it sounds like your staff really took that all to heart as well, literally putting it over their heart. So that is great. Anyone have any other questions or comments or want to share their personal why if they have one? I have done this before. I haven't done the whole why, the whole process, but my purpose I've done, like what is your purpose, and when I've gone to leaderships, and mine was always to be of service, but hearing you now I think I need to go back and go through this and see what the entire why is. So
well, if you go through the real process, you're supposed to find somebody who doesn't know you very well.
Okay.
And you're supposed to tell your personal stories to them, because we don't rose tint exactly our experiences, but we have a aspiration of what we think we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why when they gave me the word to advocate, I was like, I don't understand exactly where that came from. But when they told me about it, and I was like, and she's like, but, and then you lit up. And that was when you shone through that story. And I was like, okay. So, and then when I came peace with it, you know, it made a little bit more sense to me once I started, you know, living with it a little bit.
Right. Because that's also how other people see you.
Right.
Melissa says, I'm going to inscribe empowering the community over our front door. That's
there you
great.
go. There you go. That would be great. And also, I think I have on the handout is to follow Simon on social media. He's he has a lot of presence. A lot of it is repeat, but it's very inspiring stuff and short snippets. And if you haven't watched his actual talk on the Golden Circle, please do so. And that's all at his website, startwithwhy.com. It's a good website. And a lot of it is free content, but I mean, he may ask for what it's worth to you, but I mean, he understands where everybody's coming from. So I'm sure he's not looking for money every time. Because as he says on the slide presentation, it's like, it is for the whole purpose he started the movement was so that it could be spread. So he wants you to use his slides to be able to convey that point to other people.
Yes, I remember I follow him on social media too, and had downloaded the Golden Circle presentation. I haven't used it like you have, but I thought it was really great stuff. Sarah asked if she can use this presentation for a staff meeting, and I would say yes, definitely. Yes. One of the benefits of the Wild Wisconsin Archive, once all of this year's presentations are up, you can go back and revisit them anytime. And definitely, I think this would be an awesome one to do as a staff meeting. So thank you, Sarah, for asking that. Any other questions? How many of you are going to go out and watch Simon Sinek's TED Talk and put his book on hold later today? I'm going to go watch it again. Yeah. Everyone's saying yes.
It's always great to reconnect, yes.
Yes. Yep, and everybody is saying yes, and me, and yes. So that is great.
And the great thing about Simon is he's a very dynamic speaker, and you can tell that he has a background in performance, and he's a very dynamic guy. I'm not sure if I ever met him, I'd probably pass out, but he has a presence about him that, I mean, he's very charismatic.
Yes. Yes, I've seen him or watched videos of him a number of times. It would be awesome to meet him in person someday.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping that the Why Discovery thing would be a workshop that he would actually show up at, but unfortunately not. But the staff that he does have around him are very small and concentrated, and it's almost like a religion a little bit, because it's like saturated. It's like the perfect example of how the why works, because it's a culture, and they all believe in it strongly. So they were great people. So if anybody ever gets that experience, I highly recommend it.
Okay, I was going to look that up and see about it now that you've mentioned it. I hadn't heard of that. And so we've been talking about Simon, but his last name is Sinek, S-I-N-E-K, in case you're looking him up on your ILS to put his book on hold. And as Jeremy said, his other books are really great as well. We have several of them in our internal consultant collection that a lot of us have read. So. And
don't discount his little bitty book, Together is Better. It looks like a little picture book, but it's for adults, and it reminds you to a basic level why you need other people. So
that is awesome. Any other questions? We'll just do one last call for questions. Otherwise, we will wrap it up for today. All right, everybody's saying thank you, and thank you for this presentation. So I'm not seeing any other further questions come in, so I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you for having me.
Once I get to my ending here. Thank you so much, Jeremy, for a great session. As we mentioned, the session was recorded, and the slides and Jeremy's handout will be posted on the conference website by tomorrow. Our next session in this track is with Chelsea Price and begins at 10:30. We hope to see you there, and if not, we hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye, Jeremy. Thank you.